2022 Charleston County Planning Commission meeting. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today's meeting was noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. This commission acts in review and recommending capacity for comprehensive plan amendments, text amendments to the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, rezoning, and planning developments. The commission has decision-making authority on road name change requests, public project reviews, appeals of administrative decisions on final plats and subdivision matters, as well as other matters pursuant to Chapter 29, Title 6, Section 6-29-340 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina as amended. If you wish to speak at today's meeting, please fill out the sign-in sheet by the door. I'm Cindy Floyd. I'm chair of the commission. For those of you who cannot see nameplates, to my right I have Paul Pilatus, Marlena Davis, and Adam McConnell. To the left is David Kent, Warwick Jones, is Logan not here? And Susan Chavis. Also seated to my right is Commission Attorney Mark Bell, and seated to my left is Joel Evans, Director of Zoning and Planning. Joel, would you introduce your staff?
Sure. To my right, we have Emily Piggott, who will be presenting the cases today, Andrea Melisick, and Savannah Murray. We also have Marche Miller, and we have a new employee, Emily Wynn. Emily, you want to? Yep. So Emily's our newest planner, planner 2. She will be actually doing in the future the rezoning cases for us. So.
Okay. Okay, I would like to remind you that in order to get a good recording of the meeting for the minutes, please speak loudly and clearly into your microphones, and please do not talk over one another. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 9th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
All right. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Chavis. Commissioner Davis.
Abstain.
Chair Floyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Kent.
Abstain.
Commissioner McConnell.
Aye.
Vice Chair Pilatos.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Let's see. Okay. First item on the agenda is approval. Is the next item agenda is a request to rezone tax map number 25300-00-323 5831 Shady Oak Road from the Rural Agricultural Zoning District A8 to the Agricultural Zoning District AGR.
Alrighty. This request is to rezone TMS 253-00-00323 at 5831 Shady Oak Road from the Rural Preservation AG8 zoning district to Agricultural Residential AGR zoning district. The subject parcel was a part of a 92-acre tract at the time of the 1999 comprehensive plan at the time it was adopted, so it did not meet the criteria for section 4.9.5 to receive AGR zoning. The subject parcel was subdivided from the parent tract in 2002, and there have been no previous rezoning requests for this parcel. Here shows the location of the subject site when looking at the future land use of the county as a whole. And this shows the rural agricultural future land use designation. see. The current zoning for this parcel is agricultural preservation, AG8. The properties to the east and the west are located in the agricultural zoning district, as they were less than 30 acres in size as of April 21st, 1999, and were designated as settlement areas with the adoption of the 2001 DLDR. The surrounding properties are either undeveloped or contain single-family residences. Here's an aerial view to the north of the property. Here's one from the south. Here's some photos of the subject property. Shows the subject parcel that's adjacent. Anyway, this slide shows the compared allowed uses between the current AG8 zoning and the AGR zoning. Staff believes that this request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan recommendations for this area, as the AGR zoning district permits a higher residential density, 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to 1 dwelling unit per acre, than the rural agricultural future land use designation, which is 1 dwelling unit per 8 acres to 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres. In addition, as previously stated, this request does not meet the criteria of Zelder Section 4.9.5 to be included in a settlement area. So therefore, staff recommends disapproval. We received 17 letters in opposition of this request and no letters in support, and the meeting was noticed as required. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
We appreciate the staff's comprehensive report. Are there any questions for staff from the commission? Okay. Seeing none, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this request? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to this request? Before, state your name and your address.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jason Crawley, Director of Communities and Transportation for the Coastal Conservation League, 131 Spring Street. We echo the same position that staff came up with, that we don't feel that this proposed rezoning meets the merits of the request at this time. We believe that the AG8 currently is the proper zoning. And without further information as to why this rezoning has been requested, we would recommend disapproval and maintain the existing AG8 zoning. Thank you very much.
Anybody else want to speak in opposition?
John's logo, John's Island Task Force, 5528 Frisco Lane, John's Island. As he mentioned, this is outside the UGB, and anything outside the UGB in terms of buffer zoning is something we definitely are against. In order to meet the comprehensive plan, the intent of the comprehensive plan to maintain that area, about 80% of John's Island is rural. And the developer of this has actually acquired multiple properties in the same area. And so this is certainly not a hardship case. Obviously, all these properties, I think, have been acquired in the last 10 years or so. So it looks like it's the start of something if you were to approve it. So we agree with staff that you should disapprove this. Thank you.
Anyone else want to comment? Before discussion, is there a motion and a second from the commission?
I move that we disapprove.
Okay, disapprove. And you second?
Yeah, that's fine.
Any comments or questions from any members of the commission? Okay. Go ahead and take the roll.
Commissioner Chavis,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Floyd,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Kent,
Aye.
Commissioner McConnell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pilatos.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
County Council will hear this request at an upcoming public hearing on July 12th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers, and also at their August 18th, 2022 Planning and Public Works Committee meeting at 5 p.m. The request must then undergo 3 readings for approval at council's discretion. The next item on the agenda is to rezone tax map number 39000-00-083, 3287 Ladson Road from the general office zoning district to the community commercial zoning district. Okay.
Thank you, Chair Floyd. As stated, this is a request to rezone TMS 390-00-000-083 from the general office zoning district to the community commercial zoning district. The current property boundaries were established in 2016 when a 1.06 acres portion of TMS 390-000-080 were combined via deed with the original 0.95 acres of the subject property, bringing the total acreage to 2.01 acres. At the time of combination, both properties were zoned general office. But to backtrack, in 1999, the original property was zoned AI, which was agricultural industrial at the time, and the 1.06 acre portion that was eventually combined with the subject property was zoned general office. And with the adoption of the 2001 ZLDR, this property became zoned general office. And prior to this request, there have been no other rezoning requests for the property. So here on the left, you can see how the property was originally configured prior to 2016. You can see the boundaries in yellow here, and the current property boundaries are shown in blue. And then also on the right-hand side, you can see that current plat that shows the property boundaries. So here is the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. And the subject parcel has 2 future land use designations. So that original 0.95 acre street frontage portion of the property is designated as a commercial future land use, and the remainder of the property has a civic institutional future land use. The subject property contains a vacant single-family residence. Properties to the north across Ladson Road are zoned CC, GO, or industrial and contain a church or are undeveloped. Properties to the west are zoned general office and contain an accountant's office or are undeveloped. Properties to the south is zoned general office and it is also undeveloped. And the property to the east is within the city of North Charleston, zoned light industrial, and is currently undeveloped as well. Here's an aerial view of the area looking to the west and to the east. These are photos of the subject parcel and adjacent properties. And this slide shows a comparison of the allowed land uses between the current GO zoning and the proposed CC zoning. So as I previously stated, the subject property has 2 future land use designations. The proposed rezoning to community commercial is therefore not consistent with the comprehensive plan because while the community commercial zoning district allows for civic uses, it also allows for a variety of retail, service, employment, and commercial uses beyond the recommendation of the civic institutional future land use designation. Additionally, the proposed amendment is not compatible with the existing uses, recommended density, dimensional standards, and zoning of surrounding properties. To the northwest and south, the property is bounded by GO zoning, and the existing uses include that professional office, a school, and a church. The property to the east is zoned light industrial within the city of North Charleston and is undeveloped. The approval criteria have not been met, therefore staff recommends disapproval. And we have not received any public input concerning this case, and the meeting was noticed as required. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the request? Okay. Before discussion, is there a motion and second from the commission?
I'll make one with not much conviction that maybe we turn down the request.
Okay, you move to disapprove?
Disapprove.
Okay. Is there a second? Suzanne. All right. Any discussion, questions for staff?
Well, we're angels fear to tread and all of that, but it would be much simpler if the applicant's not here, so much simpler if the parcel were, what's the term, subdivided again. It would be much simpler for us. At the moment, we would be going contrary to the things that we've been told we shouldn't do. I will say that the whole area there is, pardon the phrase, a dog's breakfast. It's sort of not a clear-cut decision, I think, that we would make. So I have sympathy with the request, but I just feel at this stage that one would be restrained to not approve it.
I just would like to get some clarification on how the split future land use came to be. Was it under institutional control prior when this came out, when the comprehensive plan came out, or was it just sort of holdover from a previous time?
I can field that, Joel, if you'd like. Yeah, so essentially, since it was two properties, the FLU follows that previous existing property line, and it has not changed since. So that's how it came to be.
And I guess, like, from my perspective, Ladson Road's a pretty major corridor, a pretty major commercial corridor. It looks like the major hesitancy would probably be the increase in housing density, it looks like. Otherwise, the uses are pretty much the same for the most part. If this is denied, can tell from experience that this will be likely acquired and annexed into the city of North Charleston and then put into the industrial property adjacent to it, right? And so, from my mind, locking this down as a commercial property rather than a light industrial, heavy industrial property is probably an improvement, even though, we can leave it as it is now, but I think the end result, ultimately this thing becomes industrial likely if we don't make it commercial now. That's my opinion based upon previous experience.
Right, and staff is working on updating the comprehensive plan currently. We're hopefully we'll have something for Planning Commission to review next year, but we have had the discussion of looking at properties like this, especially in the North Charleston area, to look to see if some of the future land use recommendations could be revisited to be more in line with what seems to be the pattern, particularly in other municipalities or in the area.
If there's no further discussion, it's time for the vote. Oh, excuse me.
Could we make a note to ask the applicant whether they would consider rezoning part or sort of changing the zoning of one of the parts of the parcel?
I will say the idea of dropping the property line was discussed with the applicant.
And they were not happy about that, obviously.
To pursue the rezoning of the full parcel.
Roll.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Chavis?
Aye.
There was no second, was there?
Is?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
There was, okay.
I'm confused. Where were we?
Davis?
Aye.
Chair Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Commissioner Kent?
Aye.
Commissioner McConnell?
No.
Vice Chair Pilatos?
No.
Okay, the ayes have it.
Okay, County Council will hear this request at an upcoming public hearing on July 12th, 2022.
That's true.
At 6:30 PM in council chambers, and also at their August 18th, 2022 Planning and Public Works Committee meeting at 5 PM. The request must then undergo 3 readings for approval at council's discretion.
I thought they should have picked it up.
So this is, the next one's historical Monday.
You did it anyway.
Yeah, but that's Trumpet Road, that's Story Farms, isn't it? Because what happened to the Andale track? Did it get taken off here? No, we can just go ahead. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is a request to rezone tax map number 203-00-00-233 and tax map number 203-00-00-232, 4104 Betsy Carrison Parkway and 3317 Trumpet Road, from agricultural residential zoning to Story Farms planned development. Ask Emily Pickett to present the proposal.
All right. As stated, this is a request to rezone TMS 203-0000-232 and 233 from the AGR zoning district to Story Farms Planned Development PD 183 zoning district. In 1999, the subject parcels were zoned agricultural general and became agricultural residential with the adoption of the ZLDR in 2001. Prior to this request, there have been no previous rezoning requests for these properties. Here is the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. The subject parcel has a future land use designation of agricultural residential, shown here in green. The subject properties contain a farm stand and retail store, petting zoo, and agricultural storage. Surrounding properties in all directions are zoned AGR and contain residential uses or are undeveloped. Here's an aerial view of the area looking to the north and to the south. And these are photos of the subject parcels and surrounding properties. And this slide shows the proposed land uses in the PD, which include but are not limited to food sales, alcohol sales, agricultural processing and storage, as well as a petting zoo. Special events will not exceed the 5 allowed per the ZLDR and will comply with all applicable regulations at the time of permit submittal. And there will be no amplified music outside of permitted special events. All signage will comply with Article 9.8 of the ZLDR. Minimum parking requirements will be provided in compliance with Article 9.3 of the ZLDR, and parking will be allowed in front of the principal building, which a 4-foot fence will screen. The applicant will comply with the AGR zoning district regulations of the ZLDR in effect at the time of application submittal for all matters that are not addressed in the PD at this time. All right. Here are the proposed density, intensity, and dimensional standards for the PD. They largely follow the current AGR standards with 3 exceptions. The proposed Trumpet Road right-of-way setback is less restrictive than the current AGR zoning, as well as the proposed side setback, and the proposed rear setback is more restrictive than the current AGR requirements. So the comprehensive plan recommends agricultural residential future land use for these parcels, of which the by right uses include residential development, agriculture, and other necessary uses to support the viability of agriculture. And the PD proposes uses compatible with those described in the comprehensive plan and is therefore consistent with the plan's intent. Additionally, upon obtaining letters of coordination from Public Works, Stormwater, and Engineering, the applicant will have demonstrated that all applicable agencies will be able to provide the necessary services, facilities, and programs to serve the proposed development. All right. The approval criteria have been met, therefore staff recommends approval with the following conditions. Obtain letters of coordination from Public Works, Stormwater, and Public Works Engineering. And remove the following sentence from page 4 of the PD, which you can read up there, which references restaurant use, as the PD is not proposing a restaurant use. 3 letters in opposition have been received, and we also received an additional 12 letters that stated the application could be supported if some changes were made to the proposed PD. And this meeting was noticed as required. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comprehensive report. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor and support of this request?
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Eubanks. I'm Director of Planning, Design, and Landscape Architecture for SGA NW 804 Meeting Street. I wanted to kind of just like back up and explain why we're here. So my client, Jeremy Story of Story Farms, has several parcels along Trumpet Road where he does agricultural endeavors. And he put a farm store up on Betsy Carrison, thinking it was part of his right to farm. But because that is a separate parcel that he's not actually farming on, it wasn't eligible to be a farm stand. If it was on land where he was carrying out agricultural activities, a farm stand would be allowed. And Emily, and correct me if I misstate anything. So in order to maintain the farm store that he currently has, we had to find a way to kind of get around that. And working very closely with staff for about a year now, we had decided that a PD was the best way to do this, to allow him to keep the farm store that's currently in operation there on Johns Island. And so that's why we're here, basically. But this is a farm store that serves things that he's grown, things that he's raised, other regional products. It's an asset to Johns Island. It serves the citizens of Johns Island and the greater Charleston County area. And we'd like your support to approve this PD so that he can continue his operations as they're currently existing. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Sir?
Mr. Eubanks, are you familiar with the Johns Island Task Force, the list of recommendations?
Yes.
So can you clarify for us, I see in that application is indicated there's no restaurant, and they're asking or indicating that an 8,000 square foot restaurant is allowed. There's an 8,000 square foot building. You've asked for food sales and alcohol sales. What?
So yeah, that was a mistake on our part. A few months back, we had in our list of allowed land uses a restaurant. Jeremy does not plan to operate a restaurant on this site, but we had it in there as a possible allowed use for the future. Just because when you do a PD, you really want to kind of look past the present and look at possible future uses. But after meeting with some of the citizens groups and having some conversations, we decided that the best thing was just to completely drop restaurant from the list of allowed uses. But that one little phrase in the text got overlooked. So Emily made me aware of that a couple of weeks ago and let me know that was going to be a condition that we remove that phrase from the text. That was just an oversight on our part. There will not be a restaurant there.
No, you can go ahead.
Just a quick question. I understand there's an existing farm stand, and the justification that you give for that is that it's on a separate parcel, and that the only way that you can make this work is to develop this PDD, which costs a lot of money. Why couldn't you just abandon the property line and put those things on the same parcel?
Very good question. Because not all of his parcels are contiguous. There is another parcel that has a single-family residence on it that separates these two parcels from all the other parcels that Jeremy had. We had discussions with that landowner about, purchasing a strip of property so that we could make them contiguous and not have to go through the PDD process. And that didn't work out. So that's the reason, is that the parcels are not contiguous.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Suzanne?
Okay, you said that you're dropping the restaurant out of the plan, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But you're coming in compliance with all the other stuff that planning has suggested to you. So what would be the problem? This is probably for you or planning. What would be the problem if you're doing the same thing with the lands being separated? Because you're basically talking about farming, right? So if it's agriculture and it's in that area, why do they have to be connected or contiguous to?
So if he had the farm stand on a parcel where he was literally farming, then this would not be necessary. This, state law, right to farm, he could have a farm stand on that land. But these are really small parcels, so he's not actually farming on those two parcels. So since he's not literally farming on them, according to staff's interpretation, which I believe, since he's not literally farming on those parcels, he can't have a farm stand on those parcels. So that's the reason that we had to go through the PD process.
Maybe something is just not coming together for me, because I'm thinking that most of the people who have farms, they may have the farm stand in another location and then just bring the product or the produce to the stand. And since he already has,
I'm not going to say that doesn't exist other places in the county, but that's not my problem. This one is.
what do you mean it doesn't exist anywhere in the county? Because I know several.
That's what I'm saying. I agree with you. They do exist other places in the county.
Yeah.
Chavis, I'll try to explain that a little bit better. So what we do have that's available is temporary sales of indigenous foods, which is allowed off of the site of a farm, but you're very limited to it's seasonal, and you have to get a separate permit for that. And actually, Mr. Story was operating under that for a while, but he saw the need to go beyond what our ordinance allows to have that temporary sales and of indigenous produce. So, and then there were a couple other tweaks, I think, too, with this particular piece of property, with having the fire pit and the food truck and that type of thing. So Mr. Story we were doing the best we could under our current ordinance of giving him the temporary permits for indigenous produce for the amount of time that he's allowed. He obtained special events permits. There's a certain number that's allowed per year.
Yeah.
But I think that the applicant wants to make it more of a permanent aspect of having the indigenous produce and the special events.
Okay, then if the terms or the conditions are met, this PD criteria would be written specifically for this property?
Oh, correct, yes. All planned developments are specific to the property that's being requested.
And so, go ahead.
My question, is that in reading some of the comments here, they're making suggestions of how they want you to change what you're asking. Are you taking that into consideration to come back with a different plan?
I'm sorry, who is they?
The comments that we've received in support of or in opposition of.
I haven't seen those comments, so I really can't address them.
Which staff is?
That's too bad.
I think the reference might have been to the James Island Task Force. I was going to ask what exception you had to some of the questions the Johns Island Task Force we have the submission, but I was going to wait until they presented, which I suspect that they will be doing. So I will.
I'd be happy to address those individually.
Okay, but I think, Madam Chair, we should let the task force make.
It's up to you. What would you like to do?
I'd like the task force to talk first before I question.
Okay, Adam?
So one more quick question for the applicant. On the map that we were given before the meeting today, there's a farm trail that looks like it ends at the property line. Is that intention for that trail to be connected to the farm?
It could be at some point, yes.
But you don't currently have an easement on that neighbor's property in order to do that, to cross that over?
If we got permission from that owner or we got an access easement from that owner, then we'd be able to connect it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for me?
I have a question about the special events. So how many are you planning to have?
He has no plans for any special events, but we would have to comply. If he did any special events, he would have to comply with all the regulations of Charleston County in order to do that. But there are no special events that are planned.
All right. So my question for staff is, how many special events could he have since they're two separate lots?
would be all under one plan development. We wouldn't go by the lot necessarily.
So it would be 5.
Right, so it would be 5, yeah. But I think that, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, having the fire pit, the ability of the store and the alcohol sales and the food trucks there would be no need to have special events, because I think that's what Mr. Story was getting special events permits for before, was to have those
believe-
things.
yes, you're correct.
Right, yeah. So that's what I meant by the planned development, being able to do the things that he was doing when he was getting the special events permits and the indigenous produce permits. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else to speak in favor?
Hi, I'm Jeremy Story. I just wanted to kind of give a run through of where I'm coming from and why we're doing this. Farming on Johns Island is something that's decreasing every year. And it's very important to me to be able to carry on that legacy and to teach children as well as adults where their food comes from, and kind of the history of Johns Island and the rich farming heritage of it. This wasn't the original route that I wanted to go. It was actually the last route that I wanted to go. This 3 years ago is when we tried to do this and got caught up in a lot of the legalities and things that I had no idea of, but I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on it at this point. But yeah, we just want to be able to have kids and adults come and see where their food comes from and be able to see the animals and eat the food that is raised here on Johns Island. We partner with Lowland Farms, Rosebank Farms, Field Farms, and all that kind of comes together, and it's our vision to be able to allow people to walk through this trail and to see the animals that are raised, and we'd like to give classes and teach people about a lot of kids come and they ask, the eggs come from there, can you eat those eggs? I thought they were made in the grocery store. So that's very important to me. Also it's my family property is my house is in the middle of the farm, and every day we have people coming, wanting to take tours, wanting to see, and people come right up to my house, and I love to show people it, but it's a little intrusive sometimes, and that's kind of a lot of the reason why I wanted to have that at the front of the property so people can come and access and see these things on a smaller scale without being intrusive to my family. And kind of, we work hard out there, and it sometimes takes up a lot of time to be able to talk to someone for an hour and show them around. But yeah, that's kind of all I have. And it's, I will say this, it's been over a year that we've been working with Bill, and a couple years before that, trying to wrap our head around how to do this. So this is, I know some of the comments in opposition, a lot of those are, I agree with their train of thought, but this exact PD was the route that we had to go down legally to get exactly what we want to do. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else to speak in favor? Nope. Does anybody want to speak in opposition?
I'm Rich Thomas. I live at 4360 Betsy Carrison Parkway. It's maybe a mile or so down the road from the site in question here. I have nothing against the people. They're my neighbors. They're farming. That's a great thing. But in the past, the stand was in violation of a number of permits, and I think you mentioned that for 3 years. I guess it's still in violation, so that's why they're here. Another point is, we all know a PD attaches to the property and not to what intents are or expected activities or planned activities are. The PD says this is what can be done. In reading through it, a lot of those elements of the PD, what would be allowed, are totally inconsistent with the Betsy Carrison Parkway corridor. Really only the other commercial activities close by are an abandoned, closed, empty restaurant. And on down the road, kind of across from me, is a realtor office. It started off as a restaurant maybe 10, 12 years ago. So there's really no other commercial activity going on there. If I understand correctly, the PD would allow several thousand square feet of building on the site. Could be a restaurant, could be a Taco Bell, could be a McDonald's. We don't know. You know, that's the sort of thing that's allowed, and it would be tremendously different from what's in the area. So large restaurant, who knows? You know, again, the PD conveys with the property. They get the PD, they sell it at some point in the future. Somebody comes in and builds a restaurant. Alcohol sales, Betsy Carrison Parkway has experienced tremendous traffic growth in the last 14 years since I've lived there, and especially in the last few years as Kiowa and Seabrook have been building out, and the construction traffic coming and going, and the residential and the visitor traffic. There's this other thing that was up today and got postponed to build bigger Harris Teeter and other activities at Freshfields. The retirement community is going in there, and that's going to draw even more people. So having people drinking, going to these events, driving on the roads, and again, it's a little country dirt road where this thing is located, and they'd be turning and going across that road. So that's a big concern too. 5 events per year. I don't know how many people would be expected for those. It looks like it could be 3 days. I mean, that could be a festival. I don't know where some hundreds of cars would park and the facilities to support that. I mean, it would be nice, but not there. So again, parking, traffic, and alcohol on Betsy Carrison in what's a country setting. I don't know that we've seen a traffic study, and again, it's not what their plans or intents or expectations are, it's what could be done there. So for those reasons, I'd suggest that either they come back with a very definitive plan development, this is what we want to do, this is how much of what we want to do, and that would be that. And it wouldn't have these kind of vague possibilities out there. So today I'd recommend you deny this application, and maybe in the future, once they address these issues, they can come back and we can reconsider it at that point.
Perhaps Mr. Evans could explain the process for a special events permit to allay some of your fears.
Yeah, just regarding the special events, each request is reviewed as a separate request. So things like parking, the number of people, the hours of operation, all that has to be presented, and they have to demonstrate that that's done in a way that the parking is either on the site or adjacent to the site. Just so you'll know. And special events can occur in any of our agricultural zoning, those 5.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, I understand that. But again, 5 events per year, we'd all have to show up here again 5 times a year and look at all the plans and go through all that.
You don't get to do that.
Actually, those are done administratively.
Okay, well, there you go. There you go.
We'll save you coming here.
Yeah, but there you go. You know, there's
no restaurant going to be in this.
Right, there's not going to be a restaurant.
So there's no restaurant in the plans, the PD.
would be allowed, right?
No, they took it out.
They took it out.
Oh, okay, I missed that part. All right, well, thank them for that. But in any case, I think this whole plan, and again, it's nothing personal to the people who live there, it's just inconsistent with the area. You know, we went through this with the putt-putt golf course down the road a bit, and you know how that was. But the corridor between River Road, where the Ace Hardware store and basically Fresh Fields is farm and residential. There's, other than what I mentioned, there's no commercial activity there. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Anyone else want to speak in opposition?
John Zalogar with the Johns Island Task Force. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read the letter we sent, about a dozen or so items there. And many of those items, we actually had a coffee with the developer or the owner's representative. And many of those items we had in there, and they ignored them in February. So I'm a little bit concerned now that, you know, yes, they will listen to some of these things. So first of all, let me say that I think Story Farms is a great location. It's a great business, and we are 100% in terms of what it is. The question is what it can be relative to what the PD says. You know, and it really comes down to that word intent. If you look at the PD, there's about a dozen times at least where they say our intent is to. Not we can or we cannot do this. It's like their intent is. And I just heard that, well, their intent now is not to do a restaurant. Well, it's still in the PD. No one's taken it out as far as I know if I look at the documents. It was said that the intent was not to have special events. I kind of heard that. And, you know, right now, as Mr. Evans said, it's per PD, but in their PD it says per lot. And I don't know how you hold special events on individual lots in the PD. So there's just a lot of issues there. And I think one of the biggest issues is there's no constraint on the maximum, unless I missed it, on the maximum square footage of the commercial they can put in there. So, you know, the only thing I see in constraint is 30% of the area of the 2.22 acres, which comes out to about 29,000 acres they could put there. I know that's not their intent, right? But the real issue is the PD really needs to say what they're going to do and get rid of all these generalities, these intents, these 30,000 square foot of allowable space. Even though they don't intend to do that, it will go with the land, not with the current owner. And so we want to make sure if we're getting a PD in here, we do it right. Everything I heard from Mr. Story was exactly what needs to happen. But what I see in the PD is something entirely different. So again, my recommendation here is, and I'd love to answer any of your questions, but my recommendation is that the applicant goes back, look at what's in there, what they really want to do with the property, as opposed to what the intent is, you know, including 30,000 square feet of retail space or commercial space, and come back to y'all and say, this is what we really want to do. So I'm here to answer any questions because I know some folks had some questions for me.
They have already removed the restaurant use from the PD. It's not listed in the uses. We worked with them. It's been changed since you saw it in February. We've worked with the applicant.
The one I saw about a week ago in the agenda package still had the 8,000 square feet in there.
It had a sentence that the applicant missed, and that's what we're saying, get rid of it because it's no longer a use. It was just an oversight.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay. The difference there is it may have been an oversight, but in the previous version, it didn't say 8,000 square feet. So somehow they added 8,000 square feet in there and then took out the restaurant. So it's
I don't remember.
But yeah, I know that was something that was new. So that's why I'm saying we just need to clarify it and say what is actually going to happen on the land, as opposed to talk about all these things that might happen on the land.
And what about the 30%?
Sure, the 30% lot coverage, that would be inclusive of the parking lots, the buildings, and anything that had any kind of impervious surface to it. So by default, the amount of square footage would have to be something considerably less than 30,000.
And I guess the question would be, what is it currently? So I think a lot of folks along that road are looking at what's there now and saying, okay, they want to put a fire pit. They want to, these are all great things. They want to do a little bit of this, and a little bit of that. And if the current coverage is
30% building coverage.
what is it
yeah.
currently on site right now?
You have to, the applicant would have to answer.
Yeah,
what that is.
so my point is, I don't know what it is, but let's just say for the sake of argument, it's 10,000 square feet. People are going to expect what's going to go there is something on the order of that, not something that's a lot larger than that. And certainly, I think, Mr. Evans, it'd be great if this being a commercial PD, for all intents and purposes, it does list the maximum square footage of the buildings itself. I mean, that's something you often see, and there's the maximum square footage of the buildings. And I think that would give the community a lot of faith in terms of the maximum that may ever go there.
You mentioned the things that you've mentioned are largely in here, but you never referred to the access. Does that mean you don't have
We did refer to the access. They said their intent was to only have access on Trumpet Road. I don't know what that means. That doesn't give you any restrictions. What we said they should change intent to shall. That access shall be on, because if you ever go in there, and I've gone in there multiple times, it's really difficult to go in there off of Betsy Carrison as opposed to go off that little side road and be able to, because there's also a access between the two separate lanes of Betsy Carrison. So no, we firmly believe. And there's other little things that we mentioned in February. For example, right along there's a sidewalk, right? A multi-use path, whatever you want to call it. The PD doesn't require there to be to continue the sidewalk through the property. So we're most of the things that you see in that list are, again, we talked about that with them in February. Almost all of them didn't get in there, and I think they're all very reasonable. Maximum square footage for commercial, putting a sidewalk in there in front of it so it connects to the adjacent properties. Things of that nature make perfectly good sense. And of course, the restaurant, I'm glad to hear that it's not in there now, because that was unusual. And again, details like it has 5 events per lot as opposed to 5 events per PD. Let's clarify that now before we have to come back, a year from now and start arguing the point again. Because we all know about PDs is if you don't get it right the first time, then things are bad. So again, the task force is 100% behind what the intent is, but we need to change the intent into a PD document that's a legally binding document. Any other questions? I would certainly like the applicant to go through all those and explain why, I think we're going to find out. He's going to say, yeah, well, that is our intent. That is our intent. That is our intent. So let's just get it in the document. I'm sorry, sir.
Dan, did you have a question?
Well, I agree with the definition of the word intent, because we talked about PDs before, and then some areas they're not doing as well as in others because of the impact on the community itself. And I just wanted to know if, I hear what this gentleman is saying, but I'm also hearing staff saying that the criteria have been met. And so it has to be the one or the other. Either has been met, or from what he's saying, just those words need to be changed in order to make everything right. So that we don't have maybe a year or so from now, him wanting to sell the property and the intent of the new owner is not the same.
Sure. And as far as the verbiage of the word intent and the plan development, the plan developments are set up. We want the folks to describe the project at first in the plan development. So that's where that language is used. When staff goes to administer a plan development, it's the list of uses that are either allowed, and if it's not listed, is not allowed in a plan development.
I mean, as an example, someone was asking about Trumpet Road. It says the intent is to have traffic exit on Trumpet Road. So that means it could go on Trumpet Road or it could go on Betsy Carrison, because it's an intent. And so the word intent is used throughout the document, not just in the preface to the document. So again, just trying to make sure we get it down straight now. We're 100% for this type of business on Johns Island. It's the perfect thing to happen, but it goes with the land, not the owner, and not what his current intents are. Any other questions for me?
No, thank you. Well,
Thank you.
Did you have?
Oh, no, I wanted to ask Joel and legal a question if that is something that we would need to do in changing that word from intent to shall.
Yeah, planning commission can make that, any changes. I mean, there's a plan development, so you can make the conditions that pertain to the property however you see fit for your recommendation.
I just want to support what Mr. Chavez says, but it makes sense to me. I don't quite understand why somehow or other intent is given another meaning. It's not sort of written in stone, and I think we want to write this in stone.
So,
With the 30% lot coverage, how does that restrict the size of the building?
I think it would depend on the uses that go on the property because of the parking lot area size that would be taken up. If that part is impervious or pervious, so that would be a design consideration.
So the 30% is just any impervious surface.
Right.
So that doesn't put any restriction on the size of the buildings.
No, if they can meet that threshold plus the required buffers, if there are grand trees, all those types of requirements.
Madam Chair.
Can we ask the applicant what's the size of the building that's there right now?
Yeah, thank you. The existing farm store is in the neighborhood of about 4,000 square feet, and there's no intent to make it any larger.
So are you or are you not going to make it any larger? I think
if I can
that's what we
talk.
keep. That's what we're bumping up against. So no, you don't intend to. But if you were,
Let me.
what would it be? What would you enlarge it to?
So we can't answer that question because there are no plans to ever increase the size of that building. So it's an unanswerable question. But I do want to, if y'all would allow me, I want to touch a little bit on why we use the word intent in a PD. Because I've written a lot of PDs, and it's had the word intent in there a lot. And like Andrea said, it's the list of allowed uses and unallowed uses that really guides the PD. But the thing is, when you write a PD, you have to kind of look a little bit into the future about what might happen or might not happen. And for example, Trumpet Road is a private road. Let's say that 10 years down the road, no pun intended, Trumpet Road is abandoned. The parcels are bought up and Trumpet Road as a private road disappears. Then, Mr. Story or whoever owned the land at that time would have to go through the process of getting an encroachment permit from South Carolina DOT to have access to his site off Betsy Carrison Road. Our intent is to use Trumpet Road for a variety of reasons. And I honestly don't think he could get an encroachment permit off onto Betsy Carrison right now if he wanted to. But that's the reason we use the word intent there instead of the word shall. And we actually worked really closely with staff. We had multiple meetings with staff, multiple emails going back with staff about specific wording of things like this. Where we thought the word shall was appropriate and where staff thought the word shall was appropriate, we used it. And when we thought intent was appropriate, we used that.
May I ask you a question? So right now you have about a 10,000 square foot building that you're using. But looking at the site plan you gave us, you have different uses here.
It's about a 4,000 right now.
4,000.
Yeah.
And so, but with this, you'd have food sales, you'd have a processing, you'd have bathrooms, and you'd have some kind of storage. That cumulatively would be.
We could never go over the allowed impervious surface.
Right.
And another thing, this is, it's kind of if you start increasing building sizes, you also have to increase parking. So, you're always you have to balance that, but we could never go over what's allowed, no matter what.
Right, but how much do you think this here, based on your site plan? On your site plan, how much square footage do you think you have?
I honestly,
Don't
I
know.
couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, fair enough.
And those buildings are not designed.
Right.
They're kind of
just-
placeholders
right.
of a future use.
I guess my point is there's a lot more here than what you have out there, which is, I think, very nice. I think it's done very well, and it makes a lot of sense. So it's easy to kind of understand it. So if I knew what this square footage was, then it would be easier to say,
Yeah.
that makes a little bit more sense.
It falls under the threshold of what's allowed. I know that.
Know that, okay, okay, good.
Just scaling it, it's about, from visually, it's about 10,000 square feet visually, if you look at it now. I will allow up to 30,000 roughly.
Of lot area. So, yeah, I agree. There's about 10,000 in building and about the same amount, at least, in sidewalks and parking and outdoor seating area. So you're probably up to about,
Right, so that would increase your building?
yeah, so that would be the part of the lot coverage. So you're looking at this plan, it looks like it's roughly about 20,000, 25,000 square feet.
So not much more can be built than what we see here,
Correct.
which is reasonable.
And did you say you were aware of the Johns Island Task Force document or information that they provided?
We met with them, but I don't know that I have access to the document that you're looking at. I don't know
But
that
you're
I've
aware of
seen
what
that.
their concerns were?
Yes, we met with them and we listened to their concerns. And and we made several changes to the document in light of those concerns, the ones that we felt like were applicable.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You say that, you want a latitude for what you might do. That's our concern too. We're scared what you might do. And it may not coincide with what we think and what you think. So I'm still of the mind that the intent should be changed. And you say that it's common to have intent in other PDs. I think in most PDs I've seen there's been some restriction. There is up to so many dwelling units, so many square feet. I don't think it's ever been open-ended, which, if you have intent, to some degree is open-ended.
We don't intend to do anything with the land that's not part of the PD right now. That if Planning Commission chose to, with their recommendation, ask that the word intend be changed to shall throughout the document,
That's exactly
I could live with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Suzanne?
Oh, I wanted to I wanted to make a motion for approval with the changes that we just discussed, that intent be changed to shall, but also that throughout the document, and we discussed the size of the building, that it can be said that it's not to be any larger than. Is that possible?
Well, I don't think anyone has definitively put what that square footage is. I think that would be something we'd have to ask the applicant. If the language is going to be to shall, and then there'll be a maximum square footage for a building. The reason why, and that was part of what we reviewed in the resilience element. We're moving away from this idea of building cover to lot coverage, and then let the building coverage be a function of what type of configuration you do for the rest of the impervious cover on the property. So, I mean, unless the applicant wants to throw out a maximum building cover that would be part of the lot coverage, at this point, that's up to you. But I think that the lot coverage will cover it by virtue of what we're looking at here and the numbers that Commissioner Adam McConnell was describing that it looks like we got roughly about 10,000 square feet
10,000
of
square feet.
buildings just visually on this. And then if you include the parking area and the sidewalks and the seating area and the oyster pit, because all of that would add up toward the lot coverage, you're going to be looking at somewhere in the 20 to 25,000 square foot range. Just looking at, so there's not a whole lot more room left to add
Yes.
to add anything else. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, and the other was that they have complied with the recommendations of the planning staff.
Right. The removing of the restaurant. So just so if this moves forward with this motion, just so staff is clear, we're talking about changing the language wherever it says intend to shall, and removing that restaurant language. And what else?
But I think that was it, right?
Okay.
Because you said the,
I thought the restaurant language has already been
Well,
removed.
we're going to
We still have to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so can we go over that one more time so everybody's clear?
oh,
What
you
the-
want me
what the-
to,
what the
you want me
motion
to
is?
go?
The
I would
motion
make
is-
the motion that we approve the proposal with the stated changes, which is changing intent to shall throughout the document, as well as complying with the recommendations coming from the planning staff.
Okay, and that'll do it. We don't have to put in the language about removing the restaurant.
It's in there.
That's correct. The restaurant use is gone. We just, this one little sentence was left, so that one of our conditions is to remove that. Yep.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion among commissioners? Okay. All right, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Chavis,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
No.
Chair Floyd,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Kent,
Aye.
Commissioner McConnell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pilatos.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right. The County Council will hear this request at an upcoming public hearing on July 12th, 2022 at 6:30 PM in council chambers, and also at their August 18th, 2022 Planning and Public Works Committee meeting at 5 PM.
Okay.
The request must then undergo 3 readings for approval at council's discretion. There was one other additional item on the agenda today for the Andell tract, but the applicant asked for a deferral.
Well, yeah, so he needs to actually request that to the plan,
Okay.
because the applicant did not contact us until this week that they want to do deferral. So to make it official, the applicant, I think the applicant's representative, John Linton, is here, is going to make the request. Staff is ready to, after he makes his request, whether or not the planning commission accepts it for deferral, staff is ready to present what the application was for, but they might want to wait if the planning commission grants a deferral and see what product comes before them. So,
Okay.
Good afternoon, John Linton on behalf of the applicant, and we request that it be deferred.
All right. Would anybody,
I'll make a motion that we accept the deferral request.
Second.
and wait until the request actually comes in to
yeah,
see the
that's
presentation?
up to the planning commission, right? Yeah.
So, all right. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Just a quick question. Will the applicant get a copy of the 311 letters that were sent to us in opposition so that they can review it?
Copies.
Please take
I'm
that.
sure that the applicant will get a copy of that. In fact, the applicant probably already has a copy of that. It's my understanding the applicant is actually meeting down on the Kiowa Island, meeting with some of the community representatives to discuss the next steps. Right.
All right. Are we ready for the vote? Call the roll.
All right, Commissioner Chavis,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Chair Floyd,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Kent,
Aye.
Commissioner McConnell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pilatos.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Does that have to go to county council too?
No.
Thank you. Okay, director's remarks.
Let's see here. Just looking through. Still working on Mount Pleasant overlay. Oh, sorry. Still working on Mount Pleasant overlay with the town staff. Staff went back out to the 10-mile community last week, or week before, excuse me. And we're working on getting that community into the Mount Pleasant Overlay District. That's our biggest project. Andrea and Emily Piggott are going tomorrow night to Stono Ferry, to the clubhouse, so, and not to have a drink.
Definitely not. It's the St. Paul's Chamber of Commerce. They're having their meeting. So Steve Dykes is the keynote speaker, but they wanted some of us from the jurisdictions to talk about development in the area. We're really just going to go over, the services we provide because we don't have a lot of development going on in that area right now.
Okay.
It's just an education session. Permitting is still up. I know you would think that by now, after a couple of rate hikes, that we would start seeing some impacts on applications. We haven't. There's a delay with that, and we'll see what happens in the future as far as permitting goes. As far as the department goes, we were granted 2 additional FTEs, an additional code enforcement officer, and an additional planner to help with our workload. So we have advertised for those, and we'll be hiring those positions soon, hopefully.
In addition to our name.
In addition to Emily Wynn, that's correct.
All right.
Yeah. Emily came from Dorchester County, by the way, in case you didn't know. She was a planner there for, how long were you there?
3 years.
3 years.
Almost exactly.
Okay.
July 8th would have been my
Right. Yeah. Good.
Okay.
That's about it.
Anybody have any questions,
Oh.
discussion?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, that's right.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very
It's
much.
right here.
Yeah,
I
we
have it
spoke earlier
underlined,
to
and I
a
still
couple of
don't
y'all. The next meeting on July 11th, we would really like to start the meeting at 1 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock. The reason why is about twice a year, because of scheduling and holidays, we have Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission on the same Monday. Usually the BZA is the first Monday, Planning Commission is second. But because of the holiday, July 4th holiday, that's always the one that wreaks havoc with us the most, it seems like, and January, New Year's. But anyway, we would like to start Planning Commission on 1 o'clock on July 11th, if that's okay with everybody. Does that meet everybody's schedule? Sure.
Do we have a motion? Do we need a vote on it?
Yes, that would be good, yeah. That way, when people don't show up and say, hey, we voted on it.
Move to approve for July 11 meeting at 1 o'clock.
Is there a second? Call the roll, please.
Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Floyd,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Kent,
Aye.
Commissioner McConnell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pilatos.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, there's no further business. So this meeting of the Charleston County Planning Commission stands adjourned. It will hold its next meeting on Monday, July 11th at 1 o'clock here in council chambers.
To save paper, should we be leaving these here?
Yeah, I know. What do we do
can
with this?
recycle.
Really be lovely if you did, in case they